Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm going to call the City of North Plains Parks Board meeting to order Monday, March 10th, 2025. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
I'm grabbing that one here. Let me. Some up over here. Zach Gaynor. Here. Patty Burns.
Here.
Evan King. Here. Johanna Potta.
Here.
Chair Simmons. Sherry Simmons.
Here.
Don Weber.
Here.
Matt Lyman.
Not here.
Not here. And okay. That's it. I'm here as well as Dustin, our Public Works Director, and I'm pinch hitting for Lori, who will not be here this evening. So there we go.
Do you know if Matt notified Lori?
Lori didn't mention anything, so I would assume not. But
Maybe he'll still show up.
potentially, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, approval of the meeting minutes from February 10th. Are there any corrections, changes to the minutes?
I would move that the minutes be approved.
I second. Okay, I have a first by Dawn, a second by Joanna. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, on to public comment. There's no one in the audience. Is there anybody online who wishes to speak? Seeing none,
None.
we will move on. Unfinished business. Update on the Nike grant. Anything able to happen with that? Is pretty short
Too
notice.
short.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd be interested in working on it, but it's more complicated than I thought.
it's something that could happen for next year.
Potentially, we
Yeah.
probably have to talk. I had some ideas, but the group would need to agree on a focus, but it's a worthwhile trying it.
Yeah, so I think next year, it's something that we can look at
Yeah,
earlier in the year.
yes,
Mhm,
yeah, so somehow to make a note to remind us all.
mhm. Thank you. Clarification of bylaws with regards to the number of unacceptable excused absences before recommendation for removal from the board. I believe that they didn't give a specific number and they're looking for, city council is looking for a specific number. So,
Did we not give a specific number?
no,
I mean, my only question was if it would be better if all the committees and commissions had a, you know, kind of a consistency. It would seem odd if we said 2 and somebody else said 4 and somebody said 3.
I don't know what it's like in any of the other bylaws.
So what I can speak to are the Economic Development Commission's bylaws. They do not have a specific number of months on this topic. It's basically left to the discretion of the circumstances of the EDC. So this would be different.
If somebody says they can't be here, that's an excused
That's
absence.
excused. Correct. Mhm.
What we're going off is past board members who had many unexcused absences, months, and maybe even a year.
Well, but I mean, the other thing that's hard, because I've been in situations where somebody had excused absences, but they miss most of the meetings. So then we would just kind of talk to them and say, doesn't seem like it's working with your family, and they would usually step aside. So I'm not really sure if kicking somebody off is that important as, I mean, the key is we want people to be here. Right? So,
But we also want participation.
pardon?
If they're not, we also want participation. If they're not able to make it, or they're not telling us they're not gonna be able to make it, that means it's probably not the best time for them to be on the board, and we gotta make the changes fast, so by the next meeting, we can have more. Get the paperwork started, get ready to get someone else to fill their spot,
Right.
so we can have that participation.
Right, but what I'm saying is even somebody who has excused absence, isn't coming, that's a problem too. So how do you, at some level, you know, I don't know if that would be on the chair, but I've been in that situation. You just call the person and say, I mean, you missed most of the meetings last year. It doesn't seem like this is working. And
Right.
in my case, they would always say, you're right.
And that would more than likely happen.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. But some people don't call. Some people just not show up for months on end.
That's what happened here.
Do we want to do like 4 for a calendar year? And then starts fresh January 1 and then goes again? I mean,
I think 4 is too many.
I agree.
I'm just starting high, I'm just picking a number that,
I think 3 unexcused, and then we ask you to step down from your position.
I mean, that's a good way to say it, because then we're asking them, we don't want to kick you off. We're just saying it's not working.
Mhm.
Like
We
you
begin
said,
the
we ask-
process of asking them to
Yeah.
remove themselves from their,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a nicer way to say it.
I'm fine with 3.
and then for excused ones, maybe a little bit more, like at the most, maybe 5 excused absences in a year. Cause I almost think
I think that's
6 is
too
a
many.
little bit borderline too many.
And that's
Unless
almost half a
there's a
year.
family tragedy or something, but I think that's way too many. I think, I mean, you're gone almost a half a year then.
That's why I said 5, not a half a year, it's with 6.
It's close.
I know it's close.
I would say 3. And then maybe have a discussion about
And
it.
then ask them.
3 a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's not bad. What is that?
Does that work?
Because they're unexcused.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying. I mean, if you call and give excuse, that's not those.
Mhm.
3 excused and 3 unexcused.
3 excused? And 3 unexcused? Why would you limit the excused? Well,
Cause if they just can't, also just, they want to,
but
but you
then
know they
that's when
can't.
a phone call would be made.
Yes, that's why, that's a
Yes.
different thing.
Yes.
Instead of asking them to step down, you would
Mhm.
check.
Because if they're letting you know they can't be there, then it's
Right.
a conversation.
But we don't need to necessarily put that in anything.
I don't think so.
Because there's some terrible things. Somebody's got cancer or something.
Right.
You want to just call
Yeah.
them and say.
Yes.
So if
I
I
say,
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I would say 2 unexcused and 2 more excused. I mean, if you, I mean, I know, not to be a jerk, but if you can't send a simple email to say that you can't be here, this isn't that hard. You know, and so to me, I kind of view it as 2, then warrants the conversation, maybe 3rd you're out. You know, kind of a thing, but to me, it's a simple, just shoot an email and move on, right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe then obviously excused, maybe we take as far as. If we wanna set a limit, but then like a need by need basis, if that makes sense, cause yeah, if somebody's facing some sort of family situation, we say cancer or something like that, we don't wanna
Well, but we're,
give them the heave ho, we wanna work with them, they can maybe chime in via Zoom. You know, things like that, right, if they can't physically be here, but
Are we setting
I
up
don't,
precedents here, Bill? For other bylaws?
Yeah, basically it would be, so, well, let's put it this way. The EDC, I can say, has no defined number of unexcused absences. The budget committee, which actually has, in my experience, has had the worst chronic people just dropping out or not attending. That one doesn't have a number. Library board might, I'm not as familiar, and if I were Robin, I'd be able to say yes or no immediately.
Right.
But I don't know about that. So among the ones I'm familiar with, this would be the first like specific number of unexcused absences.
What's the city council do?
For unexcused absences? The new council rules call for, I think it's 3 or 4 unexcused absences, and if there are more than that, council has the option to vote to censure the individual. Publicly admonish them for not attending and not having an excuse.
Okay.
Should we follow the same suit?
Yeah,
And have a,
I would think that to keep it,
I would think so,
Um,
and then I feel that on the excused, it's so hard to put it. To add to that, because everyone's scenario is gonna be different, and we can't really say if it's a health issue, this, that, this,
No.
that, because if they're. Putting in their effort to stay on top of the agenda, to communicate with,
yes.
to make their communication and all that, they're putting in the effort, and everyone's scenario is gonna be different on when it is excused. And I think it's harder to put. I agree with what, I think we're all in the same agreement, though, when it's unexcused, it's when it's, come on, you know.
Yeah.
You
So-
could,
Probably just stick with the
Yeah,
unexcused ones, and
unexcused. And then
probably don't need to
take,
put anything for the,
and
for
then
the
take
excused.
the other one on a case by case.
I mean, the problem,
I don't know.
it's awkward though, because we don't remove. It would have to go back to the city council. If they're not in the habit of doing that with their own, they might just overrule it, so it doesn't accomplish much. I mean, to me, if the chair was comfortable, it seems to me the very first unexcused, they should get an email at least saying, you know, maybe you don't understand, but we really, really want you there, but especially if you can't be there, let us know. Right? Give them the courtesy of that, and then if the pattern exists. Yeah,
I mean, you could put it.
I mean, because realistically, we're just a volunteer committee that were appointed by the council, so the council, we can't kick anybody off. We could
Well,
recommend it.
according to our bylaws, we can.
yeah, according to the bylaws, you can vote to kick somebody off for too many unexcused absences, or I believe the phrasing is working against the interest of the
Board.
body, the board.
So the council's already approved our ability to do it. Okay.
But you go like. I don't know,
I think that we should follow the same suit as council to keep everything the same. If that's their goal, to have everything be the same.
Well, I don't know that it is, I can look up what the council.
Because
rule
that's
is
my
very
takeaway
specifically.
from their meetings, that why isn't everything the same across the board?
Well, to be very precise, they have directed you all to come up with a specific number of unexcused absences. They didn't direct you or me to ask, you know, define a number of unexcused absences in the context of, or setting precedent, or to be consistent with. Like that additional layer that isn't there. They just weren't comfortable with,
It was,
lack of specificity, because, you know, perhaps, you know, I don't know, perhaps whoever the chair is at the time really doesn't like somebody. You know what I mean? Like, at least give them a certain, like, specific sideboards on what's acceptable and what's not. That was the concern.
Mhm.
How about first one, email, second one, phone call, third one, the censure, whatever they were doing, city council, fourth one, potential vote for removal.
But we wouldn't censure them, because there's
So
no,
you would have option of kicking them out. Voting to kick them out.
yeah.
Or something along those lines, or we could do
I mean, one thing.
forward, or we vote, or.
So 3,
One thing you could do is, or you could do it this way, you could say 2 in a row,
mhm.
or no more than 3 or 4 in a calendar year, or whatever. But like, if they just flake 2 months in a row,
Yeah,
you might as well assume they don't want to be there anymore, you know what I mean? So there might be an in a row dynamic you want to consider. Sounds like you're kind of thinking about different things.
We could do two in a row.
Yeah, I would do,
And then,
make it simple.
and then 4 in a calendar year.
And makes you only short up percent of time, you're taking that time, at that point, it's might as well. 70%.
Could we say if they miss a certain amount, we retain the option to remove? The option or?
Yeah,
Well, it already states that.
Is it mandatory or is it an option?
It's not mandatory.
Okay.
The whatever the certain number of unexcused absences are enable you to have the vote on it. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to.
So if you were to word it, any members that missed meetings without any excuses at 2 in a row and or 3 times in a calendar year, the board has the option to begin procedures to
Whatever it says in
remove
there.
said member.
It's okay.
Is that a motion?
I motion that be the thing we add to the bylaws.
Repeat it. Somebody
We
repeat
did
it. 2 unexcused.
2 minutes?
In a row and or 3 in a calendar year. That when those requirements are met, the board has retained the option to begin processes to remove that member from the board.
disciplinary action or something.
I
Is
said it so
there a
well the first
second?
time.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a first by Evan, a second by Patty. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carried. Did you get that, Bill?
I did, thank you.
hope you got it the first time I said it.
We're good. We're also recorded, so.
Okay,
Lori- Yeah, exactly. Lori will piece it together.
All right, I sent along an items list for first quarter report. Did everybody get a chance to review those? Is there anything that needs to be changed or added?
The only thing I didn't see on there was, which was part of the agenda today, was the, what they asked us to start reviewing, the fees. The rental. Sorry, I'm trying to.
Well, that direction
That's at
just
the
came to
bottom,
us
right?
today, so.
Okay.
Isn't that on the second bullet point there?
No,
No, that's for the water bill.
Oh.
The other one was the fee waiver.
for nonprofits.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I can update that. Is there anything else? Anybody can think of? No? Okay. Move on from that. All right, discussion or comments submitted by Parks and Rec Board by Don. Don sent his testimony in for the rat session. Did everybody get a chance to review that? Any comments? Questions? Concerns? Don, do you have anything to say?
I mean, basically, when we were on the committee, there was a point in time where they said, we're gonna go around the room and let us know which of the growth plans you want. We went around the room and I spoke for the 90 acres the Lake Park, right, which we'd all agreed on, so push for that. This thing that you're looking at, I received a thing, as we all did, on the committee from the head of the committee saying, we encourage you to submit testimony sharing your thoughts, experiences, and takeaways from the relook process. So that was totally different, this request. So that's why this is framed differently. This is what they asked of me and everybody. Give my takeaways, my thoughts, my reflections. They weren't asking in this particular request for me to define the growth I wanted. This was just what I said. Yeah.
So wasn't it in the capacity of being there on behalf of the Parks Board?
I don't even know what that means. I mean, I'm sharing my thoughts, experiences, and takeaways. Those are all framed in that. I don't really see anything I said that I would say is super opposite of a park member. I mean, they're obviously one person's thoughts. You're on the committee also. She might have totally different thoughts than I would, and that's fine.
Right, but I was in the committee as part of being a resident.
Uh-huh.
So taking in my personal, thoughts and, regards to my family and what I thought about it. And with that, I was very thankful for the rec and, being part of it, to hear others. And, I'm for the growth because, I want more parks. It plays a big key role in the growth of, our city and the needs within the city too, to be able to attain that on a fiscal component. But I was on that committee as my own personal opinion. I wasn't there reflecting this group and the opinions on what being on the board was, which I believe what that stands for. If we look at the, parks, code, to be here is to be for the growth and for the parks and for all of that.
Or the growth.
Sorry, I don't want to misconstrue my words, but I'm looking at which one it was. Positive interest. So if you look at code 31.61, the membership and qualifications is anybody that's part of this board is really to have a positive interest in the development, operation, and maintenance of parks and public parks. So it's to have an interest of that growth and how that's going to be attainable, to have an interest of the growth of the parks. I think it's a little bit different going into being in any of the committees if you're representing yourself, or if you're representing a board or a committee or anything. Like, as an example, I sit on the foundation. When I go there, I go and I speak on what we've all talked here. I don't go in there and say, Cindy, I think this or that, or this is what happened in the board, in our Parks and Rec board meeting. This is what the board talked about. This is what the interests are. And then when we do meet, I come back and I relay the information on behalf. So I'm kind of like the liaison between both. And I don't guide my decisions or my thoughts based on, to them based. Now, if I do have a personal decision or thought, I feel that where I need to mention that before I go to the meeting is here. Because I think I would want clarification. I think this, what does everybody else think of? So that then I can gather everyone's opinion and take it in as a whole, not again as my own. So I think in versus what I was part of that committee and what you were part of committee, I think I disagree in saying that it was the same, because I think my opinions being in that committee are really truly personal, because I was there as a resident. And as taking my personal opinions, which I don't want to bring them into the board and construe that, because I was not there on behalf of the Parks and Rec. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, I felt comfortable that my comments are consistent with Parks and Rec. I mean, others could disagree, but what I'm responding to is, I think the growth through housing, which is what we were encouraging by the lake, has an entirely different effect. We've had a lot of commercial development in the last 5 or 10 years, certainly down in West Union, And what that's brought to parks is zero. It's brought nothing. So that's why I was bringing up the issue, which is supported by the strong town movement, right? That this kind of growth doesn't necessarily significantly bring in much money, which means, the best example is the giant building on West Union. Almost nobody likes that building. So, it also, one of the things that we're really big on in parks is the open space. So what happens when you build all those buildings, open space, which parks people like, are gone. So beyond money, why would I want that? So what I'm bringing up is, which comes from the strong park movement, is actually those buildings don't bring as much money as people think. So it's a very important discussion in parks, because housing is totally different. My neighborhood in Bryn Hill has given us 8 parks. All that other stuff on West Union, 0.
No, and I don't have anything wrong with what, I feel like after that meeting, what you should have brought was come back to the board and said, this is what was discussed in that committee. And then that's when you would have brought your opinion about this, what is it, strong cities, or what it's called. And then have that discussion here before then, kind of something, you're saying that letter should have gone to, I don't, you were meant it to go to council, is that what?
I'm just doing what they asked me to do on it, and they gave me 1 week's notice, and yeah, so I did it. I really don't see a problem with what I did. Asked for my thoughts, but I also factored in, I'm a strong parks member, and I think I brought up some valid issues that in theory, all of us would share some of that, right? So I don't see a big issue. I really don't see, to be honest, how I could come back and go through every word with this committee and then go back. And again, the framework of what she asked for from me, please share your thoughts, my experiences, my takeaway. And I did those in the context of being a parks member, so. Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay. We move on. Budget discussion for parks needs. I guess maybe create a subcommittee for this.
For the potential,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd be willing to be on it, but it'd be great if some others, but I thought maybe if we talked about even a framework for. I could throw out a couple ideas and people could say, what would be something we think is workable to ask for the first year? I mean, obviously, all we're doing is asking, but.
Yeah, and clearly it's, if there's any money available for anything, so.
Well, I mean, they're gonna have to throw ours in the hopper with everything and then decide who.
That's right. Mhm.
In theory, they could shave over here and add over here. I mean, my basic thought when I was thinking about it before is I don't think we're ready for a full-time person. The idea would be to hire a part-time Parks and Rec director, but also have some money on the side, because I think if that person had a budget where they could hire some coaches or some gym night people, or in the summer, hire some college kids to help run some programs for kids, it would be nice to have a part-time and then some money besides that. But again, I mean, a subcommittee could work at that. That's what I was kind of.
Mhm. Yeah, I have a hard time seeing us jumping to that level so quickly.
I mean,
Based on the tax base for this city,
Pardon?
based on the tax base for this city, I don't see us getting to that level of hiring a director and then them hiring people underneath them.
What kind of a budget would that need?
You'd need, I mean, whatever we say, we're gonna need 50,000 a year, then you'd need 100,000 total. Again, I don't think. I think our job is to think what would be reasonable to get Parks and Rec going. To be honest, I don't think we're jumping the gun here. It's been thrown around for 5 or 6 years, and it's kind of an embarrassment that we don't have anything at all. I mean, where I'm at, and again, I'm a huge fan of the library. I don't fault anything, but most places I'm at, libraries and Parks and Rec are pretty equal. So I don't think us asking for one part-time is like this, I think it's a very reasonable request. Now, we can be told no, all we're doing is making a request.
Does anybody want to be on this subcommittee with Dawn? Because I think it'd be looking at, how many hours we would need.
Yeah.
What kind of programs would be provided, costs that would be needed to run those programs, not
Right.
just the people, but whatever.
Yeah.
Supplies would be needed as well.
I'd help. Yeah, I'd help for sure. So I think the possibility of having a part-time could give us some teeth to get some tasks done and we have somebody we can hold.
I think Matt would definitely be willing.
Sure.
He has some specific interests, but. And anybody else would be great.
Anybody else interested? Yeah, time either. Okay, so right now we have, Dawn and Zach. I could send an email to Matt and see if he'd be interested
Yeah,
in
sure.
being on it with you.
Yeah, tell him that we're doing it. We'd like him to join us. And he could push for more. Yeah. He wants college lessons. Yeah, and obviously all we'll do is bring it back to this group and this group will have to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Thank you. All right, goal number 1 of the Parks Master Plan is to encourage and support public involvement in parks and recreation issues. And so, did you get a chance to review that first goal, and are there any updates that we should make to that? Add some teeth to it.
When I was looking at it, sorry, I'm pulling it up. I had it. I lose it. The goal number 1 was primarily supporting, continuing, yeah, here we go. So it was to support the Parks and Rec board as the forum for public discussion, involving residents and stakeholders, and promoting volunteer park improvements, promoting expanding of special events and recreation and programming. I think this is something that just needs to continue to move forward, and I think it's going to continue to move forward in what we're doing with the bylaws, with thinking of budgets and possibly part-time and all of that. It's continuing of all of that. The one thing I did want to bring up that maybe us as a board can emphasize a little bit more, and going to council meetings and hearing much more, and see if there's anything that we can do to emphasize it, which is 1.4 of the first goal, which is using a variety of methods such as city websites, social media, and news articles. I mean, I don't know, I'm just throwing out, the idea, but I think it really needs to go out more as to bring more presence of the city website and social media as the direct form and point of communication with community. It's been said in a couple council meetings, a lot of people go to Facebook and random pages and random residents as the news outlet, and that's what's going on, and a lot of it is so much misinformation. So how can we really promote, or what can we do as a Parks and Rec Board to promote more of the social media and the real city social media and the website, to have people have more traffic in those areas, to where people can start seeing that more and more and start going there first, rather than saying, well, so-and-so put this on social media, that must be true. And, people put the hours of the meetings or the board meetings and they're incorrect. And then they say, well, the city, never informed, the hour was at 6, and I saw on Facebook, and it was somebody who randomly said, at wrong time. So I don't know if we can come up with any ideas or suggestions. I'm even thinking if any of us have social media, we can repost when the marketing contractor puts anything, reminders up, if you were, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, but.
It seems they've been posting weekly the meetings for the week.
Right.
So maybe reposting that will be good, sharing that.
Yeah.
And sharing it to the community page as well. Mhm.
Yeah, but I was just thinking as a board, how can we emphasize those avenues of communication? So that people start getting used to using those avenues of communication for information of what's going on, of the boards, of the committees, and be in the know of when they are at and when they're meeting and when there's a vacant position and when,
Mhm.
so that, because it's impossible.
Because it's
to
always
go-
easy to blame somebody.
It is so easy to blame someone, and it is so easy, to construe information of
Right.
someone else and grabbing that and saying something else on their personal page. So how as a board can we really emphasize it? And even when we're at events, it's kind of us being, kind of like that direct, like check out the city's website. I mean, the website just got a whole new, relook, and it's so much easier to navigate through there.
And you just type in your question and it'll
Exactly.
pop up.
So I was just thinking, when I saw this first goal, just to highlight that one, because I think that one is one that would be, if there's anything that any of us can do to, just bring that
But it
information.
doesn't
forward.
really need to be beefed up language wise.
No, I think the city's website is great as, it's not, it's letting people know that's there, that's where you should go. You think, they say common sense and common. It's not very common, but. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that one as based on just comments at city council.
And was
And
there-
all of that too.
Okay, and was there anything else that should be added that we could do to highlight?
So we're looking at what pages in the master plan? I guess I'm confused.
So this is the first goal. We're looking at the first goal, which starts,
I'm looking at the table of contents. It says executive summary, introduction, community listening, personal space.
It's right underneath executive and summary.
Page
page 17.
17.
Yeah, it starts on page 17,
Okay.
goal number 1.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that's not in the index. So that, oh, I see. That's why I got confused. Got it. I mean, I think everything you said is great. It's just a matter then of adding it in, or who's gonna do that.
Well, I think we all should.
I think it's all,
I think that
Well-
all of us should do it. As
Do,
we see it pop up, we just share it on our page. Right? So that you're getting it out to people that you know,
what,
each of us.
what do you want to change here?
Nothing.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. It's, I think the goal number 1 is not of changing anything. I think it's
It's just-
continuing everything.
Mhm.
But in that this is the master plan and we're on this board. I think it should be our due diligence to promote the city website and the social media, anything that's coming up. And not us construe it in our own words, but I feel like it's a repost, or it's when we're at an event here in the city or the ice cream social or anything. Maybe at those times, we should have like a QR, I don't know, and the city table and saying, it's just promoting that and where people can go
For information.
for information.
Mhm.
It's kind of
Does the
us
city have
being,
the city has an app? An app,
yeah,
right?
There is an app, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe we need to promote that
yeah, I
more.
love that more. And that's why I wanted to highlight that. It's like, how can we come up with methods as when events are happening?
Mhm.
When we have like a QR code somewhere at a table and promote that communication.
Mhm.
And one of us talk about it. being that there's no staff, what can we do to promote where the information is at?
Is there a communications person still?
That's
Is that
Therese.
Therese?
Therese,
Mhm.
yes.
And what does she do exactly?
She works on the newsletter, she kind of builds story bank and works on, just basically stories that will go, that newsletter or e-connect. She does all the social media posts. Anytime we do a press release or that sort of thing, she does all that. It's all external communication that she works on.
So if anybody has a press release, they can send it to her and she can send it
Yeah,
out?
city press release, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Good. Anybody else have any ideas? Questions about this? None? Okay, thank you.
So each meeting, we're gonna be going through these goals,
Yeah,
correct?
we'll go through goal 2 next month. Discussion on policy for fee waiver for nonprofit rental of Jesse Mays. This is a direction from city council. So if we could each look into maybe other cities, how they're doing it, or if you know people who work at other parks. They're looking for a methodology for coming up for a fee waiver for nonprofits.
I mean, what about, I thought there was also discussion on redoing the whole fee schedule, but that's not being discussed, that's only this?
Yeah, no, just this.
this?
No, I think council, council didn't like or I think they came to the point recently where they didn't like the idea of anytime a nonprofit wanted to try to rent this building for free, they come before council and appeal, the council's generosity on it, basically. And so what they wanted was for you all to give a recommendation about some objective criteria for that. And just the background is that, this facility has 3 different rental rates to it, basically. There is a rate for residents, on an hourly basis. I think it's $104 an hour. There's a non-resident rental rate, which is about 20% more per hour, or something like that. So residents get a discount relative to, you know, if you don't live in the city, but you want to use the building. And then nonprofits rent the building for half the hourly cost of residents. So there is some cost recovery there. It's just that nonprofits get a good deal. It's set up for them still to pay an hourly fee, but at a significant 50% discount to what a resident or a resident interest would be. But you know, cities do. I know Hillsborough for a fact. I don't know all the details of it, but I do know Hillsborough and some other cities basically kind of have just a kind of a flow chart or a checklist.
Yes.
That kind of ask, you know, are you a local nonprofit? Are you a North Plains based nonprofit? Do you do this, this, and this? I mean, maybe there are some targeted uses that council wants to encourage. You know, and then if you kind of meet all of the just objective checklist criteria or a certain number of them, then you qualify for a fee waiver, and then it's simply simply the city manager, boom, administrative decision. You meet all the criteria. Thank you for applying for a waiver. You get it, you know, because you meet the conditions. It's sort of like with the tenant improvement grant, the food service tenant improvement grant that the Urban Renewal Agency does. You get a slightly better match ratio if you're a resident, or if you are specifically, whether or not you're a resident, whether you want to open a new, you know, sit-down dining something or other on Commercial Street in downtown. So it's just objective criteria. Yeah, I'm a resident, boom, you get the slightly better match rate sort of thing. And then, you know, you're not in front of you know, council doesn't have people coming,
I
you
know.
know, that sort of thing, and
Yeah.
why them and why not them, you know?
So is there a different category, sorry, 1 second. Is there a different category for like memorials that would fall under a different category? We're only working on nonprofit section.
That, well, that could be up to you to say, we looked at nonprofits, but we also recognize that there are, funerals and memorial services, or maybe blood drive. I mean, maybe, you know, I mean, that's nonprofit, Red Cross or whatever. But, you know, there might be certain priority personal events, like a funeral or something where you would wanna, you know, say, but we also recommend that always be a fee waiver or something.
Okay.
That's, you're making the recommendation, so you can kind of chew on all that.
Is it the same groups that are always bringing this up? And is there a certain
Yeah.
number of, like, what is their background?
So,
Like, as
yeah,
far as like, what kind of nonprofits are we talking? What do they do? So I think there's.
so, well, so far, I mean, they've been perfectly, you know, lately, they've been nonprofits that have a perfectly good mission. One of them was the North Plains Food Bank,
Okay,
and one of them was the North Plains Senior Center. And, you know, nobody on council thought you don't deserve a waiver. It was just sort of, we don't want to have to hear this over and over again. Why not just have criteria where we can just check boxes and, you know, yes or no?
Mhm.
And I think it just makes it equitable for everybody to follow the same
Yeah.
and not kind of make it seem preferential to
Yeah.
one versus the other.
Because we, there for a while, a couple of years ago, or right after COVID, we had a church that would rent this building every Sunday. You know, and they would pass the hat to help pay for the fees and that sort of thing, but you know, they never applied for a fee waiver, they always just did the nonprofit rate, but that was then. You might have other churches, religious organizations that would ask for a waiver, and well, they paid, and I mean, so something objective in front of you to be able to say is a nice thing to
I
have.
mean, my only question would be what the ground rules are on how I have to leave it, because I'm presuming it's Dustin's staff that have to clean up. Is that right? I mean, if I have a dinner here and I leave it kind of messy and I don't pay anything, that just seems a little awkward if we make it too easy to not pay. And then, I don't know, do we hire people to clean, or is that your staff that come over, Dustin, and?
Both. So there is also on top of the fee, are we talking about the deposit, the security deposit on top of that, or is that separate?
That's separate. We still, just like they apply to rent the facility the exact same way everybody else does, except for they check that they're a nonprofit, and then they check that if they want to apply for a fee waiver, they apply for it. We do collect an over $400 security deposit for extraordinary cleanup or even damage. We require insurance of everybody. But yeah, if we're giving people fee waivers, there's no cost recovery, really operating cost recovery. Those are for extraordinary, you know, mess or repair need. The deposit and the insurance, of course.
So the people that get it for free still pay the deposit?
They still give us the deposit, refundable. It's a refundable deposit. So if they leave it spotless and no gouges in the
Somebody told me
floor,
it was 500, it's not 500?
It is,
it's around 500 now.
the senior
Well,
center paid
500.
500 deposit.
Yeah,
Because that was the issue that people have brought up to me, they don't rent it because they just find that to be incredibly high in their mind. I mean, I think I looked at Hillsborough, that was 100 or 200, I mean.
yeah, it's fully refundable,
It
and.
scares people because they're thinking, I don't know, it's a lot of money to give if I'm having a birthday party. But anyway, that's.
Make sure you leave it clean, good and clean.
Pardon?
You're gonna wanna make sure you leave it good and clean then. when you-
Well, it scares you. I've been in that situation. If somebody says, yeah, but the wall was scratched and you go, well, that wasn't, I mean, it just scares you if you don't. It's a lot of money. But anyway,
So if you
So-
guys wanna, go ahead.
So Bill, where does city events fall under this?
City events,
City events, the NVDA doing our city events.
right.
Those are private
Um,
contract.
So Yeah. it's different. Yeah, no. So the NPEA is the contracted event service provider for 7 non-Garlic Festival events. And then by a separate contract, they're the service provider for running the Garlic Festival. And in both of those contracts, the NPEA is, one of the conditions is that it gets to use Jessie Mays at no cost because it's operating the event, contractually operating the event. So it's, as a vendor to the city, it doesn't pay for use of the building because it's contracted, but it's a city event.
It's an
Yeah, that's
in-kind,
pretty
because they're
simple.
providing.
Right,
a service
I
for
wanted
them.
everybody to understand that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's 7 non-Garlic Festival events and Garlic Festival.
Mhm.
Like how much, like you just had the crab feed, how much do you have to do versus Dustin as far as set up of tables, take down, clean the floor up, all that?
We'll get it all.
We did
You
everything.
do everything.
The crab feed
Everything.
isn't a city event.
No, that's not a city
Right, but I'm saying, I like that if we have the ground rules, you get it for free, but I want you to leave it
Right.
like you found. it.
You didn't find anything wrong, did you?
I didn't hear anything, and so I believe you got the full deposit back,
Right,
right? So.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I
that's how it
think
I
that's.
mean, we do all
the key.
floors, we,
Yeah, that's
do
the key
everything.
is, that's what I think. we
no
have.
table setup, we did all the setup ourselves.
Yeah, I mean,
All the-
we have conditions in the rental that you need to leave it in X condition and so on and so forth.
Or you
It's
can,
all laid out.
or you can pay if you want them to do the setup for you and tear down, you can pay extra for
Mhm.
that.
That's right.
And so with the city events, we've always had Public Works, set the tables up. It kind of depends on what the event is.
Spaghetti feed would be.
Right. And I know that was part of a conversation a while ago about what it costs to have the guys come in and do that. But in all the years I've been doing it, I only know of one time where there was any supposed something was missed in the cleanup, and that was the chili cook-offs.
I think it was a chili cook-off, it was
There
a
was
little
some
messy,
chili or
there was
something.
something on the floor, but it was like,
I think on the wall or something, I think is what Cody said, something, I don't know. But,
in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
yeah,
I mean, Patty and Sherry, you're the experts. How would you say we set this up? For the council?
Well, I think we just need to, make different criteria that they need to meet in order to get it,
Right.
waived.
yeah,
Well, what would they be?
Well, that's what we need to figure out.
Well, that's why I was asking you guys, because you know this better than the rest of us.
And then that's something that we can bring back to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Is there a way to get a list of previous clients that have used this before? So we kind of know what we're
Yeah.
looking at as far as like what they file as and kind of backgrounds.
Sure.
And we can kind of say, okay, based on clientele, we can help narrow this
And then
down.
if you guys want examples too,
that's what I've
looking
got
into
here.
other
Got a
cities.
bunch.
If you pull up City of Hillsborough, what is it, THPR, I can't remember their acronyms, and, I looked at Forest Grove, there's tiers. So
Mhm.
you can set things into tiers of, if it's over 50, if they're planning on making money from the event, if they're planning on selling things, if there's gonna be food, if there's gonna be alcohol. And there's tiers, and with, like, Hillsborough has one laid out really well, which is part of it. And then they don't have what they call a fee waiver. What they call is they have a grant for events for nonprofits. And there's a grant that they use. And I know it's because I worked on that with Counselor McCall when she was the manager for Walters, is there's a grant. And so anybody specifically that is a nonprofit, that it's to invite nonprofits and or either diversity or even someone that wants to have something here that is not a nonprofit, but then they have to follow a certain criteria too. And all that is listed on their website, and I can forward it to you guys if you want to see, to get an idea of what we can all discuss to put in these tiers and what that qualifies. And how much that could be. I know with the grants, it was only two that the entities can only apply once a year. Once per calendar year, or I don't know if it was fiscal year or calendar year. And they would put up the application twice a year. So I don't know how, that's also different. Is the application gonna be one, do we wanna have this application open all year long? And those are things to think about. If an entity can, like an example you used of the church, and not that that's gonna happen or happening, but are we gonna allow them, if they applied once, then they can use it all year round and have 3 or 4 or 5 events? Or is it a one-time only? So those are all things to think about too, on what those clauses and what these tiers are for the fee waivers. And
do they only accept so many grants per year?
yeah, it's not it actually with City of Hillsborough, it's open twice a year. It's open in the summer and it has, because it had a leeway, so it was open in the summer and they had a committee. The application opened, I believe, in June for a month for July. People submitted the application and then this committee looked at it, the application, and then based on that bucket of grant that the city or with Walters, it wasn't the city, it was Parks and Rec. They had an X amount of money that they were gonna put aside for this, and there were grants, not fee waivers, that the term
But
of
the
it.
grant covered the cost of the.
And
cleanup
exactly,
Yes.
the grant covered the fees, the cost of the.
Was that
person.
so much money? Because
Mhm.
that's a very expensive building to rent.
Well, and that's probably went into part of their consideration of the grants that were applied for, the size of it.
Yes.
Based on
Yes.
that pot of money they
Yeah,
had.
it was
they
the
had to
size, if
pick
they
and
were,
choose.
if
Yeah.
there were, if this was gonna be an event open to the public, and if they were going to charge, not charge, what that fee was, because all those were taken in consideration. Cause the primary idea was if anyone was gonna use the space for free, it's to really have it be used for free, to bring something to the community.
Right.
So is it,
Mhm.
how is it gonna bring value to the community? Having that nonprofit do something there, is that bringing value to the community? Is if I as a city can't plan for that, then if somebody else wants to do that, what value is that bringing?
Mhm.
So it was.
Are the fees negotiable? As far as altering those?
Not really. You either, for the nonprofit, you either pay the $52 for the first 2 hours and then $52 for every hour after, or you get a fee waiver. So there's no sliding scale on that. It's just one A or B.
So it's very expensive when you're doing an event like the crab feed that's, hours and hours of setup and the event and then hours of cleanup.
Is there a maximum per day fee though?
I mean.
Because if you're charging, someone's having an all-day event,
mhm.
that adds up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, off the top of my head, my recollection is there's no like 1 day maximum,
A maximum per day fee.
exactly.
Can we set that?
Well, I said, it could be worth doing. When I was in San Jose, they had one for their rec center and it was like $350 for the whole day.
Yeah, you can,
That's what I was
well,
thinking.
I mean, what you can do is, again, so council, so one thing if you care to, what you can do is that you can, as you do this research, if you want to make recommendations around specifically just the fee waiver recommendations, you can recommend that when June comes and the new fee schedule is adopted, that they make modifications beyond just the nonprofit fee waiver criteria.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you're looking around, and you find, wow, why are we doing it that way? You can recommend, kind of based on what you find, that the fee schedule do something a bit different about it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. So we have our marching orders for that. We'll bring that back to meeting next month.
So what should we all individually do for this for next month? What do you want us all to do?
I guess look at different ideas for, what the criteria should be to be able to obtain a fee waiver.
Mhm.
The other thing I think we need to think about is, Hillsborough is larger. Look at smaller cities in comparison to our population. There's a big difference in,
One of my biggest concerns is, I trust you totally. But when we start doing it with a bunch of different people, we've got the kitchen, do I really want them in there? Do they know how to work the stove? And that's.
Well, that might be one of the things that we can put on there is whether or not they get the waiver if they want to use the kitchen or not.
Well, and I'm not sure how much we want to encourage those big food events.
I don't know.
With
that
a bunch of
that's in
people.
charge.
Like what Hillsborough told me is the only way they do it is they provide staff on site.
right,
And we're not prepared to do that, and I don't wanna put that on Dustin, so that's my concern. I totally trust you, but I'm nervous expanding that.
Well, is the kitchen even open right now
It
for
is
rental? I mean,
Not for rental.
kind of sort of.
I don't know, is it Bill or Dustin?
We have been discouraging, we've been discouraging,
I was
You said-
discouraged when I was.
well, until improvements are until the kitchen's improved, we've been discouraging rentals with use of the kitchen. I mean, if somebody wants to come in here and do a 35th birthday bash, but if somebody just wants to store iced tea and there's some, we just don't want people making a big mess in there with the equipment we have and yada, yada, yada. So there's some discretion involved in that, but generally speaking, we're trying to avoid that kitchen being used too much, basically.
Then can I ask would you mind, setting up the link that you found?
Me?
Yeah, sorry, yes, I should say your name. Yeah, would you mind setting up the link that you found for Hillsborough and kind of the things that you think that we should, like maybe like a couple bullets of like check these points out, and from there, we're gonna give some framework
yeah,
based on what you see that.
and to what
Give your
Patty said,
background.
it's just using the framework because I was trying to find a small city but it's just using the framework and taking from there because our
Yeah.
prices are gonna be different, things are
Yep.
gonna be different.
Right.
So Looking into what the city. what teaching what
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Basically, got a little more of those copies.
Yeah, and if you go like, even if you just, I'll send them to you, but if you wanna even look at more cities, like I even looked at Sherwood. So, city of, or whatever city you're gonna go and put Parks and Rec event application or event waiver, and it'll take you directly to their stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, actually, none of them really address a fee waiver. It's all more a discount for nonprofits.
Nonprofit, yeah,
It's all,
They
none
just
of the
make you
cities are
pay.
really
Yeah.
doing fee waivers.
and
It's
some of them are
more,
very expensive, some of them are
So it
not.
might be a better idea to, well, looking at this for fee waivers, also looking at just the grant thing, like it said in
right,
Hillsborough,
um,
which is pretty much a fee waiver.
it is, yes, and the same thing much as it. But it's just how you word it and what you're putting in, is it gonna be open? Those are just, that's why I wanted to bring that up, is it gonna be open all year round? And how many times can somebody apply in a calendar year? And have all those rules, all those criterias listed on there.
Okay,
So we need a list then, right, of who's using it now as far as
Yeah,
nonprofits?
we can drum up a list of who's rented over the past however long, that's a nonprofit, that's pretty easy, I mean, I guess, it'll be interesting to see what you come up with from different cities, I mean, I think you can end up keeping it kind of simple. If you want, with local, and
So like the
serving the public
beekeepers,
good.
they meet here, right?
they do.
So are they paying now?
I think they have a long-term, long-standing grandfathered agreement to not pay. And the senior center, not senior center, the historical society, same thing. there's just been some groups that came and
Grandfather Day.
got themselves grandfathered in with
But they're low maintenance. It's not like they're asking to have a dinner.
yeah, they just show up chairs,
Yeah.
speaker, exactly, it's super simple. Well,
Let me tell you, the Historical Society is not always the cleanest.
Oh, aren't they at your place now?
Yeah, and those farmers come in with
Money,
all kinds of stuff on their
money,
feet.
money boots. Yeah, but you know, but as opposed to the. You know, I'll throw out an example, they're good folks, but it is a bit different, like say the quilting. Society, they'll come and do a big sale and sell fabric squares. Good for the community. I mean, it's a neat event and people like quilts, but I mean, are they doing something for the community as opposed to say like, the Red Cross wants to do a blood drive in here?
What do the
That's a
quilters
different-
want money for?
Just fundraising for to do more quilts and things.
Now, do they
Do they give the quotes away?
So,
sometimes?
sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes, but it's not like, you know, it's not like they're doing a fundraiser to raise money for a scholarship or a.
Yeah.
So do they pay?
Little different. My recollection is it's been a mix of either a fee paid or they donate a quilt. So,
Yes.
no, I haven't seen a single quilt. I think one hung at the library for a little while from one year. But
And
either
then they
way,
do, the Garlic Festival, now that's changed because they don't do the gate monitoring anymore, but they used to do one for the Garlic Festival. And, it was raising funds for
But
them.
I guess I would say is that nonprofits can be clubs, they can be chambers of commerce, they can also be for, you know, food bank, and they can be seniors and, you know, so.
Alrighty,
Yes, so you said, sorry, two questions before we move on, sorry. So you said June is when we could look to possibly make any changes to potential cost, outline layout, just out of curiosity?
So I would come up with recommendations by May.
Okay.
Council, in June, council has to adopt a new fiscal year fee schedule in June for effective July 1.
Okay,
So if you come with some recommendations in May, then that would be enough time for it to, you know, be considered and potentially added to the fee schedule.
and then question, is there a way to see when, with the nonprofits, not only the groups, but how they file? Just out of curiosity, because there's like 30 different ways nonprofits can file.
That information we don't have. We ask for the nonprofit, we ask for their number,
Okay,
but we don't
okay,
ask for
Right, because
more.
on everyone, it's specific to a 5013 on the applications I've been looking at for the cities that
Okay.
do.
You can look them
Okay.
up. It'll work.
yeah.
Yeah, like Secretary of State's office, I think you can query a lot, but on our application, we just ask that they verify that they are and
For sure.
then give us a number.
Okay.
Mhm. Any other questions? No, you're good? Anybody else? No. All right. Moving on, Parks Board ordinance cleanup request.
Oh, yeah,
That's what was put in front of you.
my turn. So in front of you is the staff, not to confuse anything, but in front of you is the staff report that I put together for council that went with the resolution that they adopted, approving your bylaws. Now, on the second page, I've circled with a lovely pink highlighter or magenta, whatever you want to call that. In the staff report, I let city council know that you all have had conversation about changing some things in the code for the Parks Board. Dawn, for instance, one meeting questioned the need for this body to be called the Parks Board because you don't govern anything. You provide recommendations, and so maybe you're a committee, so maybe you should explore changing the name. I pointed
We
out.
all agree, we like the idea, John.
So that, I mean, that's for you all. So what council would like you to do is at least on these three things that I've listed here, Dawn's observation about board versus committee. I mentioned here also that if you read through the code about the Parks Board, it's called the Parks Board, you're legally the Parks Board. But in amendments to the code, the residency requirement amendment back in 2017, I believe, the name Parks and Recreation Board is used. It's like, well, where did that come from? So what are you? I mean, legally, your chapter is the Parks Board, so that's technically what you are. But just clean up those sorts of things. And then the big thing, the substantive thing is when council made the Economic Development Commission permanent, turned them from the committee, an ad hoc committee, into the commission. The EDC put before the city council, let me choose the correct word, duties. And they have the duty to review business incentives and this, that, and the other. Like they have a list of like specific things they're supposed to do, not just goals. Like they have in their code, there are goals that EDC has: positive business relationship, employment growth, quality jobs, things like that. Those are their goals, but they have duties to achieve those goals. Right now, in the code for the Parks Board, you don't really have duties. You have goals and some that kind of sound like duties, but really you don't have kind of a specific list of charges to achieve those goals. Like you're supposed to advise the Public Works Director on the operation and funding of parks and that sort of thing. That's sort of like a duty, but really there's room here for you to work on what your duties should be as a body, because you don't really have that section in the code. So that would be kind of the more forward-looking, direction work that you all, maybe one of them is to be in charge of communication about this, that, and the other, or you are the ones who work with city staff on surveying for parks preferences, or like actual kind of actions that you should be doing to achieve your goals. You just don't have those as duties right now. And so council's interested in hearing back from you on all those things, and then we would just basically take all of this and do an ordinance so that they could hear it and adopt something
It
new.
seems to me, it's a big conversation council has to have. It's not really up to us, but it's very confusing when they have a budget committee, economic development commission, the library board, the Parks and Rec board, and the planning commission, and urban renewal agency board. Now, are any of those actually boards? I think just the urban renewal is an actual board. So to me, all that terminology, it's got to be cleaned up by the council. Otherwise, I mean, to me, we're clearly not a board. But it's funny, like I talked to somebody on the library, said, so are you guys a board? Kind of. What do you mean, kind of? I said, do you decide things without the council, or everything goes to the council? Well, then you're not a board either. I mean, that to me, all that stuff has to be cleaned up by the council.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it gets too inefficient for each group saying what they want to be. Just put us all, to me, we're all in the same category. We're all advisory groups, which is great. I like being one, but let's just say it.
Well, I mean, if council goes and asks the other bodies to kind of go through a review, then there could be room for consistency. The main thing is I've been asked by council to ask you to go through these things and come back to them.
Because I thought we already agreed, we're a committee and we give that to them, but they have to decide how to change the wording. That's not up to us. I mean, we talked about that when they did, we agree, we're a committee.
So I guess we
So we're done.
So you can check that one off. You can check that one off then. Yeah, if you want to be the committee, then.
But they have to do it until they change those words.
And
That's,
he'll bring it back to them as well.
Right, because I have to turn it into an ordinance for them and a staff report to go with it, but I have to turn your recommended language into an ordinance.
but like I'm saying, it's up to them, but there's a big picture here, which isn't just us. It's extremely confusing. Like I just said, we have 3 boards and 2 commissions.
Yeah,
And probably only one, I think Urban Renewal Agency is an actual board.
yeah, The library board, I do believe, has board function because the relationship between the Washington County Cooperative Library System and the city, that body has some involvement in that relationship, so it does, so it's a little, it's an odd different thing. But the Economic Development Commission's purely commission, they do some things, but there's advisory too. And then there's you all, and then of course, the Urban Renewal Agency is just city council with different names. They're board members, so. So anyway, the bottom line is that you're not gonna solve all these things. Well, you have one thing checked off. So I can't
Well, we
say,
could talk about another one,
And another-
items, and that is,
Yeah.
do we change it from Parks and Rec Committee to, or just keep it as Parks Committee?
What does the code say? The code calls us.
Parks.
so
Board.
if you look at the city code, each of the non-city council bodies, the boards and the commissions for the city, each one has a chapter in the code. And your chapter is titled the Parks Board.
Mhm.
And then at least 3/4 of the sections of it refer to you all as the Parks Board. But then there were some items that were added and updated in 2017.
I remember that. I remember doing it.
And in those alone, you refer to the Parks and Recreation
Right.
Board. So it's like, I don't know who wrote the language back then, but they sort of like didn't pay attention to the fact that that your name is the Parks Board. So it's just a weird inconsistency, because legally I have to refer to
Who
you
was
as
the city
council.
manager then?
2017. Andy came along around then, but I don't know if it was him or not. It might have been Blake, might have been Blake.
But aren't we saying I think we're saying we like being the Parks and Recreation
Yeah,
Committee, and that's gotta be fixed by the council.
Yeah, well, that'll go in the ordinance, will be those two things, so that's easy. if that's what you
Recreation
want.
is who we've always been.
Because if it's just parks, then are we just dealing with the parks, not the recreation?
Right.
Yeah, programming and all that stuff, so.
Because we're trying to force recreation, where they have us just as parks.
I think most people think of us as Parks and Recreation on the official site for the city, they call us Parks and Recreation.
Unless they're planning on starting another group called Recreation Committee.
Right.
So can we all agree that number 1 and number 2, same name? Can we cross both those bad boys off the list?
I think so.
Or are we thinking no?
Sounds good to me.
Number,
One is to have Parks and Recreation added to our name.
Parks and Recreation Committee. Well, because I'm looking at the ordinance
Yeah.
and trying to see the differences in where it's been added. It's been added under membership and qualifications. Under purpose. It's in there twice. Everywhere else is just Parks Board. So. I don't know what the additions were.
Which is,
I wasn't involved then.
Too long ago.
Yeah,
And I think we could just send back to them, we want to be Parks and Recreation Committee, please fix it.
mhm.
I agree.
I'm fine with that.
Very solid language.
Yeah. Please fix it. Because I think our bylaws are very consistent with Back to Work Committee.
The bylaws do.
Pardon?
The bylaws
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Mhm.
Make that.
Okay, so we have 1 and 2. So all we need to work on are duties. And some of that is outlined in here under purpose. So. We can bring those back next month. Sounds good. Anything else? I don't have anything else on my list, so, board and staff comments. Does the board have any comments?
I just wanted to say, I hope we mentioned in the minutes that there was a special award given to the the Garlic Festival, won a special, what was it called again? Your award,
Festival of the Year.
Ovation.
and it's, they categorized them by
Yeah.
budgets or something.
Right, it's called the Ovation Award, and it was for, the small,
Best small
Best-
festival.
best small.
In the
festival.
state of.
Or
I mean, that's one,
under $150,000 budget.
and then there's a rumor that the stinky costume was worn by,
The chair.
anybody who's
Really?
worn a costume with a head on it.
I just heard that
Stinky
time.
is the correct word.
They didn't even-
Right.
So I admire you.
This thinking was having a panic attack in that costume.
I refuse. Well,
It's not fun.
I don't know how
Good job.
people were involved in that, but they said a lot of people had.
Yeah, they said it was hands down
Yeah.
the winner.
Yeah.
so
That's wonderful.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that we should send a notice to Therese and see if she can post it because
I
it's,
have.
Yeah.
you know,
I've done that.
it's for a city event.
Yes,
See that
yes.
a lot on Facebook. which-
Yeah.
Mhm.
Put it on your,
I'll-
put it on your, put it on your
What do they
posters.
give you, what do they give you?
Yeah, with that,
What do they give you when you win?
I, trophy. Yeah.
Did you send her pictures?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome.
That must have been the Facebook one for you all.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
clear.
yes.
It's clear, so it's hard to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Claire.
Put it on your posters and your shirts for this next one.
So you all sat in a room, they like.
Advertise it.
down,
Yeah.
their name?
Makes people wanna come.
Well, they had to tell us ahead of time because they wanted us to be sure to be there and to bring
They didn't want to
Stinky.
invite Toulouse.
Well, what they said was, so we could only go down for one night because it was my 40th wedding anniversary. And so, he says to me, he says, could you please bring the stinky costume? And I'm not gonna tell you why. And, so then when we got there, he goes, do you know why I wanted Stinky there? And I said, no. And he goes, well, because you guys are the winners. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we knew before they announced it. So,
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
And I think,
40 years ago.
anybody else have anything?
The foundation did not meet in February. There was no quorum, so no meetings. I don't have any update for it.
I do have an update. I'm still waiting. They have a letter
Yeah,
done. I'm still waiting for a mailing list
Wait,
from the water.
the last email I saw was that Cindy wanted to look elsewhere.
Oh, I didn't
Because
get that.
Because I think she wanted the names of the people on the account.
Okay, okay.
And we're not really.
So then that's where it's sitting. Yeah,
there was no
so,
meetings.
I mean, I guess the bottom line is if folks are comfortable with a mailing list where everybody's addressed as
dear
North
resident,
Plains, dear North Plains resident, or dear North, then boom, I just can't release.
And the
all the
envelope would
addresses
say
with the names.
resident,
I'm sorry?
the envelope would say resident.
Yeah, dear North Plains resident, yeah.
Well, no, just the envelope's not gonna say dear, it's gonna just say
it
resident,
would
your
say-
address.
and then the letter would say dear North Plains.
Yeah, exactly. We just can't release the names of, all the accounts with the account
Right.
address.
Right.
That's all.
And that's what I thought, but Cindy has an alternate thought,
Mhm.
but she hasn't relayed that to me.
Okay.
We didn't meet. in
I mean, you're gonna
February.
You get less, I don't know, some people actually don't mind that, because they don't like it when you say dear Don and Diane, like, how'd you get my name?
Right,
So I don't.
right.
Yeah. So that's where that is.
Okay.
But we can whip that up pretty quickly.
Okay, anything else? Staff?
We're hiring finance managers, if you know anybody with a lot of experience in government accounting and stuff, send them our way, it's a good job. Yeah, just throw it out there, you never know who people know.
Work here.
Anything else on the next one?
Parks and Rec side, not anything new.
Yeah, not really,
Is it a full-time in-office position? Yes. Okay.
it's even an exempt position, so they don't get overtime. They're managing the department.
Yeah, okay.
Can I ask salary range?
Yeah, it's I believe 93 to 122.
Okay.
Yeah, it's for somebody with some experience.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Perfect.
And what is the title?
Finance manager.
Manager.
It was on social media today
was.
and.
I remember saying it and just,
And
Over 8,000 a month.
I've got it on, yeah, and I've got it on government jobs and. I think I'm gonna post it on the Oregon Government Finance Officers Association, but that doesn't come out, the jobs board doesn't come out to Friday, so. Anyway, we're putting it out there.
okay.
But on the Parks and Rec side of things specifically,
Nothing new on the Parks and Rec side. I'm doing a Public Works, work session next council meeting on Monday. If you are interested in hearing all the stuff that I do with the Public Works side, which includes some park stuff, but, I don't have anything new to report unless you have any questions of me that are burning.
I have one. We're still in need of a dog station out here.
It is.
There's one in the corner over there,
It's right there in the corner.
Did it just get put in?
within the last week or two. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Cause I was like. Coming out here on those nice days with all those dogs running around, I'm like, this is not good.
So that's something we can share, that there is a new dog station.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, it's also new, and so hopefully we have it on our list to check it frequently too, so.
Yes.
Sometimes those new things get forgotten sometimes.
I have something else for this body to think about for a future time, if that's okay. And this is a bit more of a personal axe to grind, but I want to just put it out there and see if you all observe or think about this at all. After being here for a number of years, and being here on the weekends sometimes, it kind of bugs me that during the day, and certainly during the summer, the Jessie Mays parking lot is taken up by bicyclists.
Oh, yes.
And so if you're a family, and you want to park right near the playground and cart your kids out, it's mostly full, if not completely full, by people who are gone all day.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So I just want to put it out there that I think it's kind of silly that it happens that way, for families who either, whatever, or maybe somebody who rents the pavilion or what have you. And so if you all have observed that and it struck you as we should do something differently, maybe that's a future agenda topic, because I think there are places in town that we could divert those folks to still be welcoming, but it not take up parking in front of.
I totally agree, because when we have events here in the summer,
Mhm.
we have to work around the parking lot being full.
And I have actually asked people when I had an event here to park on the 309 in front of that chain link fence.
Mhm.
Moved the bikes down there so that parking could be open for our clientele.
Yeah. So I'm just putting it out there. Sounds like you've seen that.
Mhm.
You're not the only one. And so if you want to kind of talk about that at a future meeting.
I don't think we'd be opposed. It's a private lot, isn't it?
It's a city.
Right. But I mean, what I observe, because I see them all the time, there's almost always a few spots, but if there was an event, you don't have room.
Yeah.
We could ask them and say, this lot is for the playground people or the building.
Mhm.
We'd ask they can park on the street, we can't keep them off the street.
Right.
There's a logical reason they all come here, it's the bathroom.
Right,
They
right.
like having a restroom, so there, I don't know where else we'd send them that has a bathroom.
Well, the
But we
bottom,
could ask them to park on the street and they would hopefully listen.
Is it just signage that we need?
um,
And I noticed that the towing sign has been ripped down.
but it would potentially be just signage, but like but Dawn is correct about the bathrooms being right there.
Mhm.
Creating conflict with space for parking spaces for, the park. The bottom line is that it would be a few different moving parts. If we move them somewhere else. And it's not right nearby Jesse Mays, we might need to have some porta potties somewhere. So just something to talk about in the future.
Curb and gutter is gonna be going around with that perimeter project, which is supposed to allow for street parking, like better street parking. And so one of the things that we could do is say, this is only for playground or park use only.
Yeah.
And then have another sign that says like bike use, maybe use the curb and gutter parking around the park.
Right.
Perimeter, outside perimeter parking.
I mean, my experience is they're pretty nice. I think they would respond if we said it and posted it. We just have to tell them where they could park.
Yeah.
And we can't control the street anyway.
And
We
is,
can control the parking lot though.
is that part on 309th in front of that Quest building, is that open to anybody? Is that their parking space? It's just all
In front of
gravel.
the chain link fence over there, that's their private, like the chain link fence, that's theirs. But as far as the
This
right of way, you can park in the street. But that portion of the street, it's only around the perimeter of the park that's getting the curb and gutter. So
Mhm,
people can park safely there. There's no curb and gutter going on the other side.
mhm.
And so they just can park wherever they can with anything.
The main thing is I just wanted to invite you, I wanted to suggest you have kind of a future agenda, talk about it, come up with some ideas, and then it's from the Parks Board, you know.
Just say no.
I think it'd be good to add it sooner than later, especially with the
Right.
change in weather in the
Yeah.
summertime and the park being busier.
And the bikes
Yeah.
are out.
And the fire.
They're out.
So that's a from Parks Board thing, I think you all could, you know, it sounds like somewhat quickly, but we can have more information about the parking around the perimeter and what alternative, you know, that's one alternative where bicyclists could go, there's other places, how to. Anyway, that would just be something that you all could take on.
Does there need to be another towing sign put up? Did that company go defunct? Is that why
I
it's
heard at one
gone?
time that they're not towing anymore, because it's out of Banks, I thought. And so I just have not replaced any of the signs that are around town. The city does not have any contract with them. They are just signs that were put up at one point in time, and I think they are just out of date.
Is that something that needs to be looked into to have another company? Or?
We haven't had any issues. So we haven't had to call anybody to
You
tow.
know, we haven't been enforcing. it.
Yeah.
Mhm,
But if we have something, no bicycle parking here,
mhm,
or whatever.
Then we did that, yeah.
mhm.
It's more like those security signs that people have on the outside of the house that they no longer have the little security signs anymore.
All right. If that's it? Is there anybody online who would like to say anything? Hearing none? I will close this meeting at 7:35.
Very good.